All right, I'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining my session today. So we will be basically covering a reusable component, a people picker component. We recently, came across a requirement for one of our clients where they needed a nice looking people picker. I know there are other combo drop down boxes that you can use for single and multiple, but they're not as nice or aesthetic to the eyes to work. And my goal here was to keep the look and feel of this component a little bit similar to how it works in SharePoint or Teams, or how you add people to other people picker columns across Microsoft 365. So that was the goal. And we are going to concentrate on completely a demo session here. So I don't have any theoretical slides or anything here. So we'll be concentrating on components and we'll go from there. A little bit about myself. I basically run a very small company called Panthara Technologies. We are Microsoft Gold partners. I'm an Azure MVP as well, and we do a lot of Microsoft 365 digital workspace consulting, and majority of our customers are based out of US, and we predominantly cater to the healthcare industry, and we recently started adding some retail clients as well. And yes, Power Platform overall is seeing a lot of growth, a low code, no code solution. And we've been able to have really good wins with a couple of our customers to migrate their legacy applications or automate their small business applications using this platform. And it has been a great journey overall in terms of using this platform, and very positive feedback from the customers as well. All right. Apart from this, about myself, something that you might not know overall from my other stuff. I like photography as well, a little bit on a hobby side. And I run a small Microsoft user group here in Chandigarh, and hopefully waiting. I'm guessing everybody else, as like everybody else, I'm just waiting for this pandemic to get over and we can, engage physically and move around and do these sessions physically as much as possible. I love engaging with the audience in a physical room rather than being virtual per se, but it is what it is so far. All right. So this is our agenda, and I'm just going to go ahead and move to our demo. It's completely demo based so far. Okay, so this is my demo tenant that I'll be using today. And before I start working on the on this component from scratch, I am going to basically show you guys exactly what we are looking at. So let me close this. I'll have this GitHub link for you guys to import that application with that component inbuilt for you guys to look at it later. But this is what we are going to build basically. So I've made the aesthetics of this particular people picker a little bit bigger just for this demo purposes, but you can resize it and work with the dimensions as per your requirements in your app. And you can even, if you do some advanced mathematical wizardry skills with the calculations, you can make the height and width a little bit more dynamic as well, which is something I have not done on this one. So this is just a normal text box, and you can start typing any letter or word, and it'll go ahead in Azure AD and look for your users that have that text in it and give you the results. So this is more in line with the kind of user experience that you see with other people pickers out there. And the moment you start, narrowing down your search, it will automatically adjust the size and everything. So I can go ahead and pick any user. And the good thing about this people picker is this component not only takes certain inputs, but it gives you output for certain data for the users as well. So you can use these properties of this particular component, to further use in your, for example, if you want to work with SharePoint list in the backend, or if you are working with your metaverse, or you're working with SQL, you can pick and choose what information you want and push it back in your database and stuff like that. Now, again, this is a little bit a caveat here is that I've just concatenated this stuff with the UPN, but this is not the right way to do it for every single claims. This will only work in certain scenarios where you don't have complex user requirements. So this can be further enhanced in terms of what type of account you're picking up. But for generally speaking, majority of the use case scenarios, it should cover this. So just a small caveat that you need to be aware of in terms of how we've implemented this. So, all right, without much further ado, let's go ahead and start building that from scratch and see how this particular component can be built. And yeah, so this particular X icon is basically, if you go ahead and click this, it'll go ahead and clear it out for you. So, all right, let's go ahead. And Marco, I'm guessing if there are any questions, you let me know. I am not able to.
No, for the moment.
Okay, yeah. So just intimate me if there are any going forward. That's all I'm asking for. All right, let's do this. So I'm gonna create a Canvas app. This is for Canvas apps specifically. I'm gonna leave this over there. And we are going to create a tablet layout blank app specifically. So the very first thing we need to do here is we need to add a connection to Office 365 users specifically. Now, again, I don't know how long ago you were using this connection specifically. Microsoft did a bit of a mess. They still don't give us the capability to rename these connections. I really hope that feature comes up in future. I would love to see that capability come in, but my application for one of my clients, like, it didn't break, but it required a lot of efforts from my end to, change everything once they changed this connection. It was earlier called Microsoft 365 users. Now they've renamed it. So you might see some documentation from the old days, which might refer it to as Microsoft 365 users specifically. So we're going to add this connection, and this is what we are going to use to query our user base. And in this application, in this filter, you already saw that it is bringing up everything. It is bringing up service accounts. It is bringing up conference rooms and everything. So you can further filter on this on the search criteria to figure out what type of user base you want here. So I'll leave that up to you. So you can have a subset of users as well and stuff like that. But to begin with, this is the only thing that is required to basically, from a connection standpoint, to make it work with your people picker that we are going to build today. So we are going to go to components. That's where everything starts specifically. So I already have that built for me. So I'm gonna, pick a lot of properties I'm gonna make here from scratch and show you how that works and why, and what was the reason for, putting those properties and values in place. So let's rename this and call it people picker. And yes, this people picker is only for one person at this point. And again, the whole goal for this session, sorry, I didn't cover this before. I should have done this. It's not specifically to show you how people picker should be working. This is more about, showing you how you can make reusable components and have a very rich interaction available from the usability standpoint of taking inputs and outputs from that component as well. So you will see some of the design decisions that I've made in this to make those kind of capabilities where I'm able to, select a particular user, and then within this component, I can, define certain actions and how it affects the output and properties that are available to me. So this is a great segue for understanding how reusable components can be built as well. So another example that I would tell everyone in this case is if you have a header for your application, like if I have the screen and I want a header for that application, and the header will have a certain design, I would definitely build that as a component and put properties on it so I can customize the text and everything. But the design elements and everything else should be centrally managed in a component specifically. So if a small change is required, you don't have to go to every single screen where you have those headers and change a small thing like color or a font size change, or add additional elements to that particular header in any form or fashion. So that's really helpful from building reusable components. So this is one example of building such a component in the first place. All right, let's go ahead. The very first thing I'm going to do is now again, this is all was a little bit of a hit and a trial in terms of making sure I get these pixels right in terms of dividing. So when you do this, it has a certain height in the text column, and then there is a particular height available for every single template in this gallery that is there, and you see how nicely it finishes with the last line, and then you can scroll if any is available, and it is dynamic in nature. So if you search something which has less number of results, it will only list two, and then abide by that boundaries that should be there for that particular component. So the other thing that I've done here to make this work, I'll show you a little later. You can see here that I've specifically put the height of this component as 514 pixel. But what I'm doing is, because I know the result count in terms of when you search for a particular text, how many results are given, I'm dynamically managing the height of this in the screen implementation itself when I'm adding it to screens specifically. So I'll show you how that formula will work specifically. So let's go ahead and put our very first component in this, which is our text input component. This is where our majority of the text will work. Again, I'm not going to, at this point, I have very limited, time available right now. So I'm going to do these things really fast and look at some of the code and properties given to me in the previous app. So I have that open in another window. That's what I'm going to use. So by default, we're not going to use anything. I'm going to place it really nicely in the top left corner. Change, again, it's up to you whether you want to change the format of this or not. Change this to 17, make it a little bit bigger, and change the positions. Pick the right width and height for this specifically. And again, this is something you can play around with in terms of what padding and spacing you want for the text that should appear in this specifically. We're going to leave the color as is for now. For this, we're going to pick white for the background color specifically. And then for the boundary, we're going to change this to gray. And border radius will be 0 for this text box. So see, you can already see it's starting to look like this specifically, right? And then for the hint text, let's go ahead and fix that as well. Search for user. So we're gonna start seeing that as well. And We're gonna put some formulas, but before we start adding formulas, I want to put all the components in place and tell you exactly how those things will work. So before we do this, let's start working on the properties within the component itself. So this is where you can do dynamic handling of data, wherein you can give input to this component and take output from this component using these custom properties specifically. And you can click on this question mark and you can click on learn more and see examples. Great documentation available from Microsoft to dig deep into this. This is where I understood how these worked specifically. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and look at my previous solution and start, picking these properties and start creating them here. So I'm going to create all the output properties that this particular component will provide to the consumer, basically. So every time I put this on the screen, this is all the options that will be available to me as an output specifically, right? So let's do this. Obviously, this is very simple. The search text basically denotes what search text was used to search for a particular user. So if I type over here like GR, so that's what that property is for specifically. Where and how it is used, I'll show you, because we need to make sure that there is something in that text specifically and need to provide an output of this at the end of the day so we can do this. Now, this is a Boolean variable that we are going to create now, show results, which basically tells us whether we need to show the results or not in the first place for our option. So this property will be responsible for showing these search results in the first place. OK, let's go ahead and create that. And then we have our result count property. So this is a numerical property specifically. So it's just a simple number for us, and it will tell me exactly how many results are available from the search that is done. So that particular property is what we use to manage the height of this dynamically to show the results specifically. And if it goes beyond 5, basically, so I've only shown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll show you how you can change this dynamically as well and start showing a scroll bar instead, right? So that's a possibility as well, but that is all handled by this result count number here specifically. All right, let's go ahead and add a few more. Let's pick the display name. So this is, again, these are very basic rudimentary properties that you saw over here that I'm using. So you can use them as a text output property to give results outside to the consumer who's consuming this property specifically. So I'm gonna very quickly create a few of these email claims. And one thing to remember as a an important fact, if you want to take away anything, email and UPN are two different things within an Azure AD perspective. So if you have a complex implementation, a user principal name can be different from your email address. So when you're working with UPN and email property from Azure AD users, just be careful that these two properties are different. And just to show you that, I'm going to let me see if I can show you that over here specifically. So just for that, I added this external user here. So you can see here the UPN for this and the email is completely different, right? But this also happens in case where you have a very complex Azure AD implementation in the first place. Your UPNs and you're coming from multiple forest and domain concept. So your UPNs and your email addresses can be different. So keep that in mind. This is very useful when you are pushing back data into your backend database, whether it's a SharePoint list or an SQL or storing some values in your tables in Metaverse tables. So keep this in mind. All right, let's go ahead and create this. So we're done with our output properties. Now there are certain properties that we need for input as well to be able to understand how this is going to work. So just like you have for every single component that you add in your normal screens, this is a very simple Boolean property that tells me whether this control will be enabled or disabled. As simple as that. So usually you can enable or disable a control in Power Apps specifically. So see over here, I have this size for display mode, whether it's enabled, disabled, or in edit mode or view mode. So that's the kind of functionality I've tried to, implement this with this people picker display mode, whether it's true or false. So you can either use it or not. So it'll be kind of stuck in a read-only mode. And you can still show values or make it uneditable kind of a thing. So that's what this property is for. And then we're going to add another property called required. So if it is required, it will turn the input to it'll give you a red checkbox over here. So if I edit this, if it was required, this boundary would turn to red instead. So I'll show you at the end when I implement this, how that works specifically. And then we are passing the selected person email address as well. Now this is handy for the read-only state scenario when you want to make sure that you are showing up the value. So if you want that people picker to come pre-populated with a specific user, this is what you would do in the first place. Okay. All right. I'm just checking if everything is good to go on the text and the question side. Yes, I think we are good.
You have no question.
All right. Selected person.
I'll ping you if you have a question. Okay.
Sorry, Marco, I couldn't hear that.
I'll ping you if you have a question. I'll ping
oh, perfect. You'll ping me. Okay. Yes. Sounds good. So we have our properties set. So let's go ahead and create our next component, which is very important, which is our gallery for the people picker results. So for this particular component where you see the results, I've actually used a simple blank gallery to begin with. So I am going to add that. It's OK, we are 22 minutes into the session. I have another 20 minutes left. I'm going to work a little bit more faster. Rename this. So I'm going to call this gallery people results specifically. And again, I'm going to put some values over here, specifically how this will work. So let's do the positioning before anything else. So 60 was the height on the top, and the taking into consideration the border elements, that's how I've come up with that 62 value. So if you are familiar with the design of how these things work, you should be a little bit familiar with doing those kind of calculations in Power BI, in Power Apps, to make sure this works. Now, this is where it gets interesting. We're going to fix this to a height of 90. So every particular template has this, and we don't want any padding here as well. We do want the scroll bar, and the rest we will leave it as is without any changes. Now let's populate the items, which is the most important thing here. And this is where it gets interesting in terms of how you actually work with these people picker. So I already have the formula with me, and I'm gonna copy this and paste it here. And I'm gonna talk about this a little bit. So I am basically calling this particular function for search user from this connector and asking it to pick the term for that selected person email, or it depends, right? So there is a condition first. If this is blank or not. So if this is not blank, then it will do this. If there is no selected person email provided for the input property, that means it knows that I don't have to give you the capability for removing this. It will then fall back to the text user search specifically, and then search for the user. And in both the cases, you see, I'm limiting the results to top 15. It's not going to go beyond that. So this is available within this search user. And of course, there are other, you know, other parameters that you can provide for this function. I'm not going to go over that, but you can look for the documentation from Microsoft on what all you can do with this, or with the version 2 of this. I still haven't dig deep into whether this provides any additional value or additional functionalities or not, but you can try both and see which one will work for your scenario in terms of what data you want and what kind of filtering capabilities you want there. Okay, so this is what gives me the capability to put all the values in this. So now let's go ahead and finish our options of putting the different components within this gallery. So let's start with the label that we are going to add within this gallery. And we're gonna, oops, let me delete this, put it in the wrong place. You have to select there and then add. There you go. That was because I was selecting outside of the template size that I had set for that particular gallery. So yes, it's a little bit notorious at times from you know, the UI perspective that you have to use. So this is just a label, and yeah, I have the old. I come from old programming background as well, especially from VB6 in the back old days. That's where I started my programming days. So I have this habit of a weird nomenclature that I use every time. So again, for this, I'm gonna you know, very quickly put all the positioning and everything in place that I already have from my previous solution. So it will fit exactly to the place where I want it to be, and leave it at that place for now. So our label is there. So this label is specifically that shows the email address of that particular user. And now we are going to add the display name label specifically. So let's rename this really quick. Label display name. And let's set all the positioning parameters for this guy as well. And I'm going to change this to 18 for the text size. And let's get this all in place. 40. There you go. So our display is good to go. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What I did, you must be looking at this and seeing, you know, when you do this, eventually, briefly, the icon comes for the person, and then if the image is there, it'll show up as a lazy load specifically. So what I've done in the background is very simply put the person icon behind this image. So if the image is there, then it'll show the image, otherwise it'll show blank for that user. So if I search like this, you can see, for example, mod administrator does not have an image assigned to it, so he doesn't gets an image. The only person icon comes behind it. So I haven't put any formula to hide a particular icon, the image, the person icon or the image. It's just overlapped one over the other, so it gives you a very good user experience in terms of you know, picking up an image only after it, if it is available, and showing up at a later stage, which automatically worked in my scenario. So let's go ahead and add that person icon over here, and let me rename this as well. Again, old habits for renaming stuff like this. So I am going to change the parameters and positioning for this. Again, this is something you guys can play around with and figure out what works, what doesn't work for you specifically. And you can change the, you know, color and everything however way you want specifically. I'm just going to leave it at default blue for now. And then we're going to add the image after this. So let's go ahead and do that. Insert media image. And this is where we'll change the formula specifically. I'll just show you what I've used. ENG user photo. Again, this might look like a lot of effort in terms of, using this and giving a nice user interface. But if you can go to the GitHub and look at the solution, it should be fairly easy for you guys to replicate it on your end with that code itself. So let's do 9 here. Jesus Christ, why would you go to 400? And then we'll set the width. And here, what we are going to do is we're going to set the border radius as well to, let's say, 20, because it's 35. Usually you do it half of it, but again, it works. So that is the border radius is what makes it go into a circular state. Okay, now let's understand what images we want to put here specifically. So for this, we just put in a simple formula that give me a blank image for the user photo from this. If it is blank, give me blank image. If there is a photo, then give me an item ID, and I've cached an error over there specifically. So in order to show you how this works, I'm gonna just put a default value of GR over here. So it will go ahead and start giving me some results specifically over there in the gallery. It should have started working by now. Anyways, we'll see where I'm missing my formulas in terms of connecting everything together. So let's move on. It's okay to look at that error for now. Yeah, okay, this usually works. So we are going to move on and add our next element to the puzzle. So the only thing left is to add a label, which will work as a divider for us specifically. And I am going to position this accordingly as well, exactly like it is available in my other scenario. So this will be at 0.88. So the 88 is derived from basically, I'm going to give it a width of 355 and put it as a height of 2. So 2 and 88 becomes 90, which is the height of my template specifically, and go from there. So this is pretty much ready. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to work on getting our, when we select this, we're going to start working on this specifically. And again, there are certain limitations on what you can do with a label and not. So I ended up actually using a very rudimentary button element instead. So we are just going to use that for now and go from there. And let me go ahead and copy this stuff from here, rename this, paste this, and let's do the same thing in terms of putting its positioning in place and, putting the width and the height. And this is where it gets a little interesting, because now I'm not using this button for anything else, but for a visual feel and look, by the way. So keep that in mind. So it only, it only works as a UI element for, it only works as a UI element for, it only works as a UI element for that circle that you see over here as a white box. Basically, that's pretty much what this is all about in the first place. So This is white, and we have our font size. I'll just change this to Sego UI. I like that font a little bit better than anything else. And we're gonna change our border radius to 20 to give that circular look. There you go. So see, things have started to come up a little bit like how we imagined it earlier. And again, for all the other functionality, I think the only thing I need to change is the hover color. I don't want this hover color. I want it to be white specifically. And then let's go ahead and add a couple of more elements really quick and go from there. We are 35 minutes. We have 10 more minutes left. Let's see if I can move a little bit faster. Yep. So now this is the button just for that boundary. And now I'm going to use a label to add the display name specifically, right? Now, since I had the same label, I'm putting a 1 on in the front for this one. So let's put this and change its positioning specifically. This will be 16, 12, and then, you know, put some width and height to this and get our, oops, I think I'm messing with the numbers here. So this will be 59 and 12, then the width here is 246. It's a little bit less, and then the height will remain the same, and the rest is all good to go. There you go. The default text value, we'll put in a formula here specifically. So how do I get the selected result, right? So there is a property or an option available from your gallery component where if you click on it, right? So when you see this, when I do this, whatever I click, that's what becomes selected specifically. So that's what we are going to see here in the first place. Okay. All right. Let's move on. I still want to see why this formula is giving an error. All right, we'll figure that out a little later. And then before I do anything else, actually, I don't want to mess up everything. So I've been burnt quite a lot with this. People picker demo. Oops. And just make sure I am able to save this guy as soon as possible. Yeah, you don't want to go far too ahead in your application without saving it. Otherwise, sometimes if the session goes kaput or anything else happens, you will be in a bit of a mess in terms of getting it back. So, all right, let's move on. I think I only have a couple of more items to add over here. I'm going to add the close icon specifically. So this one, let's call it ICN close. We're going to position that specifically as well. And so far, it doesn't look like I'll be able to make it on time for everything else that I have built for this. So I'll show you what we can do there specifically. So 301, 18, 30, 30. Come on. Get in position. And focus border. Everything else is good. It actually doesn't look good in terms of the position. I don't know why. All right, well, we'll check that later. I think I messed up this guy a little bit for the display. Yep, I did mess it up. This was 322. There you go. So we have it in the right place. And then the only other thing that is left pretty much is the icon and the image over here specifically. So let's go ahead and add that. This will be a person icon. Oops, I missed that. So let's go ahead and add this. Person. Let's position this properly as well, so it comes up behind that circle over here specifically. So 20, and then 18, and then 30, and then see, you have to wait a little bit. If you do it really fast, it won't take your last input. That's just how it works basically. And then the last item that is left is adding an image basically for that person. So let's rename this as well. IMG selected person, and put our formula for the image here as well. So this one is a little bit more complicated for the formula than we have before. So earlier it was just that. So this time it's a little bit different. So it will pick the first photo. Otherwise it will pick so it depends on your input property for selected person email. If you're giving him that, then it is going to use that specifically. Otherwise, it's going to pick the first item and show it from there specifically. And let's go ahead and tame the size and the positioning of this image specifically. So this image is going to be 19 from the x-axis and then 14 from y. And we're going to size that 38 by 38. And again, we're going to change the border radius for it again to 20. Well, technically 19 would work too, but that is what we have. Okay, I don't have enough time left to cover all the formulas and everything, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick this and edit this particular application. I see I have 3 minutes left. Sorry, let me bring this particular tab over here and show you. And by the way, let me put in an announcement with this link where you have this app over here already. So I'm gonna just put that in the announcement, GitHub repo app link. So all you need to do is go here and look at it. So every single formula and everything will be there. You can download this and import it into any of your solutions, and then go ahead and customize it the way you want specifically. So the very first thing I had to do was make sure all my output properties over here were put with the right formula. And in this case, I've used the gallery results.selected option, and then whatever data properties that the result sets have specifically. And the same goes for display name. The same goes for email. The same goes for the display mode, and then the same goes for whether it's required or not. Now these are the some of them are input, some of them are output, so you have to be careful on not to change that. So this one, for example, this is where the magic happens for the height specifically. So it will figure out what the result count is. It is and set it specifically, and it'll count the rows and set it up. But if the text search is not blank specifically, then then only it will do this. Otherwise, it will put it as 0 in the first place. And what I have done on the formula for the gallery people picker, when you do a select specifically, I've put the show selected person value as true, and then set the text search DM value to true. Now, how does these two variables affect the design of this, right? So if I go back to my text search user and I go to my display mode, so this is where you will see my text search DM parameter is used to understand whether I should make it into a disabled mode or not. So this is what helps me over here to make sure that once an item is selected, the text box in the back end, you see I'm clicking over here, it's not letting me put any text in here, but the moment I do this, it becomes editable. So that display mode for the text input is being handled by this particular Boolean variable inside it, and it'll decide whether it'll be an edit mode or a disabled mode. And then the other aspect is to make sure whether there is any input variable given by a person or not. So it should show that. So for example, I want this particular you know, people picker to show a value of a particular user all the time. Then what I can do is, let me check if I have any default values for this. I don't. That's how it should be. Then if I go here and, you know, the selected person email value is nothing right now. So if I pick Megan Brown's email address, let me first copy it really quick. I'm gonna find Megan Brown and copy her email address, which is in this case the same as UPN. I'm gonna go ahead and put that value over here. You see what it's gonna do? It's gonna pre-populate that a particular control with that username. So if you want to set this people picker with someone's value in it or assign this, you can even use variables over here basically, and make sure that whatever that variable is, if it is dynamic, if it is coming from SharePoint list or anything, and you assign that property to an email address, it'll show that person's value as a picked or the selected people picker automatically. But if I remove this, that's when it becomes editable for me, and I can go ahead and search for anyone and do it. So you can control that. The other aspect is this one. So see, the moment I turned it off, it became disabled, so nobody can type in it. And if I enable the required field, you can see that it'll turn red to show you that this is a required field specifically. And all the formulas for the border color and everything, it's defined in that particular application. That is uploaded in the GitHub as well. So I think I'm almost 2 minutes beyond my specific time. But yeah, I think I've covered all the most important things. And then you might have to dig into a little bit on how I have, worked on certain elements. And I think I missed one particular aspect, which is really important. Let's go there and cover that part. So the thing that allowed me to give you a dynamic height is this particular formula, right? So I want to understand if you are searching for anything or not. If you search for anything, then the height will be 62. This height 62 is actually for this image, the base particular component that it should come up with a height of 62 with the border intact. Then if there is a result, if there is no result in it, then also it will be 62. And in case of the result count, if it is greater than 5, then it is capped at 514 pixels. Otherwise, it will be 62, which is this base height plus whatever my template height is multiplied by my result count. So this is the trick that helps me get that dynamic result of getting my results in place. So if I do GR, I know the result count is 2. So it will basically calculate the height of this component dynamically, 62 plus 90 because it's 2 times into 90 for the result count, and it'll go ahead and give me that. So that's what gives me that neat feature to dynamically control a component height. So you can actually use this for not just this use case scenario, but you can use this for other components that you build as well, where things need to expand or collapse based on the number of results specifically. And if it goes beyond 5, it'll cap it at 514 pixel, which is the exact height of my overall component. And then the scroll bar appears only in the gallery specifically. So that's how this is working specifically. And yeah. I think at this point, that's all I have from my side. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
No, for the moment, we have no questions, but we wait 1 minute. During this minute, Jazit, thanks for sharing this session, and thanks for sharing this your code. Okay, it's very interesting. Your people picker. Then it's possible download the component from GitHub as a solution or a single component.
No, you cannot download this as a single component at this point. It's an app, what I showed you. So what you can do is look at that component and build your own side by side and make changes to it.
Okay.
Or if you want to use, if you're starting a new Power App specifically, you can just import this app as a starting base and start using it.
Sure.
Yeah. I haven't looked into it whether you can export and import components specifically. I'm not sure if Microsoft provides that. I'll dig deep into that. If not, hopefully that is one feature that should come up in future. So we'll see.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit difficult, to be honest, because you have to have connections in place and everything. So I'm not sure how technically it will work for Microsoft from an architecture perspective as well. So again, I don't know either at this point. But if they get that capability where you can import and export components specifically, that would be awesome,
Yeah, sure. Thanks for your time, Jazit. No question. Please vote this session. I'll share with you the link into as announcement. Jazit, thanks for all. And I hope to see you soon in the next event, but not virtually, but in face-to-face.
Yep.
And have a nice weekend. For me, that's all. And thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Marco, and it was a pleasure. I hope everybody learned something new today from this session. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.